Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
We're going to get started here in just a couple minutes as everybody starts to file in. So feel free to grab a cup of coffee, get yourself situated before we get started. We'll get started here in just a couple minutes. We've got a really exciting topic today, small business as usual, but we pulled in a couple of awesome people for this panel, local CEOs of the chambers. We'll introduce them here in a couple of minutes, but we're really excited for today's conversation to talk about small business here in the greater Columbia region and how we can build some momentum together, get back on our feet after COVID, and try and help add value to each other. I think I can speak for Lexington Chamber and Cayce-West Columbia Chamber when we talk about we're all about adding value to small businesses. That's why we're here today. And we're really excited just for the collaborative effort between the chambers to kind of put our heads together and brainstorm and figure out how we can help small business progress here in the Midlands, COVID or not. We want to grow small business. We know that small business is the backbone of America. I know you guys have probably heard that a million times, but we're really excited for today's conversation. I'm going to kick it over to Susan McPherson with the Chamber. Susan, do you want to update us on anything going on in the Chamber?
So good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being with us today. And I'd like to start by saying thank you to not only our sponsors, but to Kona Ice, who is a new member and new sponsor for these meetings. So look forward to working with them. And also wanted to take a moment to mention, and you'll have to pardon my props here, but the Chamber is proud to be working with Blue Cross Blue Shield and City of Columbia Economic Development. We have a small business momentum program going, so we're supporting small business that support small, save local. So hopefully you've seen some of those posters around town. What we're doing also is trying to encourage people to pick up one of the postcards at some of the local coffee shops and send a note to one of our small businesses that you frequent and do business with, and hopefully that will encourage them and let them know how much we appreciate them. And then for a couple of important meetings, we have our military outreach group meeting is next Tuesday, May 25th. It'll be at 2 o'clock. It's a Zoom meeting. We have report outs from all of our major military installations and military affiliated support organizations. So hopefully you'll register and join us for that. On Tuesday, June the 1st, we'll have our issues meeting, and we are still looking for a wonderful, invigorating topic. So we'll be bringing that to you real shortly. And then on June 15th, we'll have our next small business breakout. So please put those on your calendars and plan to join us as often as you can. Thank you for your support.
Thanks, Susan. Next month, our topic is building a brand, building a business brand. So make sure you mark your calendars for that. It's June 15th. That'll be an exciting conversation. We're going to have some local influencers, people, large business, small business, everybody talking about building a business brand. So keep your ears open and look out for the email to confirm our speakers there. It's going to be a really exciting event. But today we're here to talk about small business. We're going to jump into a breakout room here shortly. But before we do that, something I've been doing, if you've been on any of these breakouts before, it's a way that I've been trying to build relationships virtually. But I take a screenshot of all these Zoom meetings that I'm in, and I'll post it on LinkedIn and tag all you guys. So I'm telling you that, I'm trying to encourage you to turn on your camera real quick so we don't have a bunch of just names. But I'm also telling you that so I don't catch you like with your mouth open or off guard or anything like that. So prepare to smile. I'm gonna give you a 3, 2, 1 countdown. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Awesome. So look out for a connection from me on LinkedIn. If we haven't connected before, I encourage all of you to connect with each other, build relationships. The more we connect with each other here in the community, the more we can build relationships and grow our businesses. And that is the goal. That is why we are here today. So without further ado, we're going to jump into a breakout room. When we come back, we'll introduce our panelists and get into our discussion. But our question for today is, what do you guys see as the biggest challenge for small business right now? Not necessarily COVID. It could be marketing. It could be payroll. It could be any type of resources, IT, insurance, anything like that. From your perspective, what is the biggest issue that you see small businesses, whether it's your small business or you see your friends, what is the biggest issue that small businesses are facing right now? So take the opportunity to connect with each other, introduce yourself, answer that question, and we'll do a little bit of networking, and we'll meet you right back here in about 10 minutes. Welcome back. I hope you guys had some good discussion. Going to open it up to the floor for anybody to share anything that was of value to the group. Within our group, a couple of things that we threw out there were it's really tough to find workforce right now. You know, a lot of people are hurting for bodies and people. So trying to find some good people that you can put in place and scale and train them up and catch them up to speed. That's been something that we have seen a lot of small businesses struggle with right now during this kind of transition time. But I want to open it up if anybody has anything to share.
Hey, Jerry, this is Ron. I'll share because I can't stay the whole time. But in our group, we hit that exact point is just really finding, people that are consistent with so much going on. I think that's always been a challenge. I mean, when I was that age, it was hard to get me to come to work too. So I totally get it. But I think the pandemic contributed to that, and people getting laid off and unemployment. There are a lot of variables that contribute to that. I think something that we can do that we have control of is, as a small business owner myself, is how do I create a workforce and an environment that they want to show up for, that they're not working just for my money, they're working for my vision and what I'm really trying to do in the community. So I think there's an opportunity to help our business owners figure out how to get someone that's at a different age and have them not just work for your money, because that can be very dangerous. So I think the side of all the issues of hiring people, what do we do that I can control, which is just create a company that people want to be a part of.
Right, you hit the nail on the head right there. I think I've seen statistics that are about, I guess, Gen Z and millennials and their workforce and where they want to work and their correlation between wanting to work somewhere that has a great culture and great environment, something that's conducive for growth, rather than just a paycheck. Obviously, the paycheck kind of helps, but being able to show up somewhere where you love the people that you work with and you love the job that you get to do and you feel like you're contributing and have some type of fulfillment by showing up to work every day. I think that's what we all look for, or what we would all appreciate to have. So I really appreciate that feedback, Ron. Does anybody else have anything that they spoke about in the breakout room that they'd like to share?
I think, yes, good morning again to everyone. One of the things that we mentioned that came out of our group, a little session there, was the, like Mr. Harvey mentioned, was the not just the recruitment of employees, but the retention as well. And then having a centralized location for small business owners where they can get information for such agencies such as ours, other chambers, Department of Commerce, and many others, where they're not meeting so much, but having us all, as Mr. Harvey said, at one table where we can present or give that information to those small business owners to have a direct impact.
Definitely. Appreciate that input, Anthony. Anybody else? Anybody have anything they want to share before we jump into our panel discussion? All right. So today we have three people that are really important to this community. I'm going to let them take a couple seconds to introduce themselves. I'll kick it over to Mr. Carl Blackstone first. You're on mute, Carl.
Sound good, Carl.
Sorry. Good morning. I'm Carl with the Columbia Chamber, and delighted to be here with y'all and appreciate y'all taking the time to be with us.
Thanks, Carl. Tim?
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Tim James with the Greater Cayce-West Columbia Chamber of Commerce. And during the month of May, Small Business Month, I just want to say thank you to all the chambers. I want to thank you guys so much for Small Business Committee Group, and Jared specifically for you and Susan pulling something like this together. It's an honor to be with everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Angelle?
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Angelle Laborede with the Lexington Chamber and Visitors Center. I'm new to the Midlands, got here last August in the middle of the pandemic. Happy to represent 750 businesses here in Lexington. We've been serving businesses for the last 60 years. And this is my fourth Chamber of Commerce, and I've worked here in South Carolina as well as in Louisiana. Happy to be with all of you.
Thanks, Angelle. So a little background behind how this came together. Our Small Business Council got together and we're like looking around at some of the events that are going on. We're thinking, well, we have an event, and if Cayce-West Columbia has an event and Lexington has an event, why don't we couldn't we just throw or do like one collaborative event and make it in 10x it, make it just a lot bigger and better and try and bring our communities together. So that's something that our Small Business Council specifically has been working on, is how can we reach out to the other local communities here in Columbia and collaborate and work together and try and add more value to small business than just in our little silos of communities that we have here. So that's the basis of our discussion today. We're really happy to have you guys here. So I'm going to revert back to our breakout room question. Kick it over to Carl first. Carl, what issue do you see most small businesses face right now?
Well, other than the normal cash-strapped small businesses, those that are just trying to recover, obviously employment is issue number one for most folks. I mean, the hits keep on coming for the hospitality and retail sector. I mean, they have they caught the brunt of the pandemic, and then coming out of it, just the labor shortage and folks not coming back to work. The governor's actions last week of cutting supplemental payments for people not working. It was, the reason they did it was because it was unbelievably overweighted towards the hospitality and retail sector. So hopefully that'll help in the coming months. But if you've got good employees, you got to take care of them. It's going to cost us all a little bit more because the market is so tight. So that's the biggest thing, just what we talked about. I mean, it is, you're going to have to be creative and find ways to recruit and hang on to them. And that's what we were talking about this in the breakout room. This is where the creativity comes out, and it's fascinating to see what companies will do. And does it catch on, and does it stay? So it'll be interesting to see the trends on this.
Tim and Angelle, I know you guys are just across the river, so probably a lot of the same issues. But is there anything that you guys want to add that you've seen that small businesses are facing right now that might be of any issues to them?
I'd have to concur with Carl. I mean, I think it's the availability of the workers and to try to get them connected and to really promote, the skilled trades. I mean, that's an area that businesses are struggling in, and I think anything that we can do as a chamber to push out information, to get folks connected, whether it's job postings, promoting job fairs, promoting out the incumbent worker training program, all those things are good things to do, but we really got to get them some workers. And the awareness piece, I think, is just telling anybody and everybody, that if you know someone who's not working, get them connected to a company.
Yeah. So Jared, the obvious has already been spoken, of course, and that's staffing, recruitment, retainment. Without a doubt, that's what we spoke of in our breakout session as well. But yesterday and late last week, preparing for this, made contact with a lot of our small businesses and asked them this same question. The other things that came up were supplies, and the timeliness of getting supplies is a challenge right now. And I think that's something that we may take for granted, that you just make an order and everything comes in. But this pandemic has residual effects for some businesses of being able to get supplies and the products that keeps them going. So helping them with that. And then the other, just probably because of the face covering and the other ordinances, we're hearing a consistency in local ordinances that would support the small businesses. And I hear that, I understand that. And how we're coming out of this pandemic in a way that does not cause a crisis upon the small businesses, but supports those small businesses. I'll use an example of restaurants. Many of our municipalities, at our encouraging of a chamber, was asking, to do away with particular type sign ordinances so that signs could set out front for a pickup of restaurants. Well, that ordinance is going to go away. It's going to be repealed now. So therefore, those signs have to come in. Those people won't be able to park on the curb anymore to be able to get food to go. So these restaurants need to recognize, how do we start pivoting back to where we were? And let's do that in a fashion that that pendulum does not swing so fast that it causes another crisis. So these are the things, other than, of course, recruitment, retainment of staff, that many of our small businesses are recognizing right now and asking for that assistance with.
Definitely. So a couple things there. Supply chain. I think we've all seen stuff about lumber prices and availability of those supplies going way up. If you've gone through a drive-through or anything lately, there's like a chicken shortage, like chicken strips and chicken wings and everything. I don't know if y'all have been out to eat and seen that. That's something that I've seen. Pretty wild. Carl, you touched on it a little bit. The creativity it's time for small businesses to be creative. And I think at the beginning of the pandemic, seeing restaurants and some of those businesses adapt to the new normal that was, with curbside to go and selling meal kits and different things like that. It was really cool to be able to see when small businesses' backs are against the wall, how they can fight back and be creative. Ron, do you have something to add?
Yeah, Jared, one of the things that I think for our community that can help small business owners like us is when we do business with bigger companies, they usually take 30 days to pay a small business, which is something that we got to have a different conversation about, because it's giving a big business a 30-day loan that's costing me as a small business owner. So I think when you're dealing with small business as a company, how do you have the conversation and bring that to a net 14 versus a net 30? Because that net 30 may destroy a small business owner. So I think everybody's in those positions and corporations. Just keep that in mind when you're doing business with us, is how much does that strap us even more with all the other challenges that we don't have the cash flow. And that's been said a lot. I do have companies that literally will not pay us for 30 days, even though they got all the product and the service. So it's like having a 30-day loan.
You are correct. I know there's some people that are turning a net 30 into a net 90, and that's definitely an issue. So good value there, Ron. I really appreciate it. So kind of to touch on the creativity, I'm going to go to Angelle first. I know it's new to the community, but how have you seen, I guess in your time here, how have you seen small businesses get creative and maybe outside of the curbside to go? How have you seen different small businesses get creative with adjusting to the things that have been going on?
Well, I talked to several of our member companies, and I don't know how creative this is. It was more responsive than anything else, but a local law firm that handles cases and goes to trial quite often, they had to really reassure their customers and their clients that everything was going to be okay. When court got stopped and they couldn't go face to face, they really had to embrace the technology, figure out there was a WebEx that was used in the courts, as well as, Zoom. So that was just something that they found themselves more in I'm going to say a parenting role, where they were just reassuring and supporting. Another great example I have is how Hollow Creek Distillery here early on in the pandemic had gotten a call about producing sanitizer and readjusting their facility. And so really in 4 days, they pivoted, which is pretty incredible, and switched their operation. They figured it out on their own. They started producing 16-gallon drums of the sanitizer. And they did all that, and they responded to some, giving that out to states and to the state and to jails and schools. But then later on, people stood in line, like long lines, to get sanitizer at their facility, and the community kind of embraced what they were doing, which helped them to just show that they were a community partner and were going to be there for their clients and their customers in the community.
Definitely. And I think that was the most beneficial thing of COVID, is not necessarily seeing businesses try and just like push through, but how can we adapt? How can we keep our business going and also contribute to what's going on? Because especially in the beginning, none of us really knew what was going to happen. We still kind of really don't know what's necessarily going on, but it seems like things are going back to normal. But seeing businesses pivot to help the community and help the people every day, that's obviously going to help you tenfold. Just having those businesses show up every single day to try and contribute to something much larger than their bottom line speaks volumes. Tim, how have you seen Cayce-West Columbia businesses be creative during your time?
Again, Angelle, she has spoken of things like the distillery, and we have a distillery in Cayce that did the exact same thing. And Jared, to your point of a local business changing, pivoting, I mean, that's 180 degrees, saying what can we do for our community? I think it's much more than just pivoting business, but what can I do to be able to help our community during this time? And now, it was such an investment for that distillery as it was for Hollow Creek Distillery to do that because their name got so recognized during that time. So I guess I'm trying to say that it's not just a pivot of business, but it's a recognition of what can I do during this time that is going to sustain me when we come out of pandemic, and my name will be better known as being a good community citizen or partner. And these type businesses are certainly, continuing to thrive. The other thing that I would say is that, we recognize that we have to work with government, and during a once in a century pandemic, things change, and we have to change as well. And our businesses said, we need some assistance in looking at ordinances, changing ordinance, or putting emergency ordinances in place that will assist us to continue doing business. And so the businesses did seek that help through Carl and Angelle and myself. And we were able to work with those cities and look at the municipality rules and regulations and ordinances to be able to keep those businesses rolling. But Carl said earlier, we in our breakout, we truly don't know your business, but we can help you if we understand your needs. And I was so happy that those businesses said, we need to stay, we need to roll, we need to pivot, but here's what we need from the chamber to assist us during this time. And so that within itself helped.
Definitely. And I see you talk about municipalities and different ordinances within the city. We have Aisha Driggers with City of Columbia and Bryant with Richmond County. Want to give a big shout out to them. They're on the Small Business Council. They're part of a group of people that helps make this happen. And I know that they have both been putting on a lot of educational seminars and resources and putting things together for small businesses in regards to PPP loans and anything and everything in between. So really, really appreciate you guys. I know Carl was creative by implementing his Coffee with Carl, which I really appreciated, especially during the beginning of COVID. Outside of Coffee with Carl, what have you seen small businesses or chambers get creative with doing to stay in touch and help businesses during this time?
Well, what started out as Coffee with Carl was really things were so fluid. If you remember last March and April, and that things were changing by the hour, forget the day or the week. And so it was a way for us to keep everybody engaged, at least or aware of what was happening. But it ran its course. And so we got to come back and figure out some ways to do that. But there's been some great success stories. Y'all mentioned this distilleries, but whether it's and you mentioned restaurants doing takeout, but whether it was a clothing store on Divine Street that started an online store and their sales have quadrupled. You look at Zevers, who was making 3D printing company, and all of a sudden it's making the most sought after face shield in Hollywood. Things that just are random in a way, but it took John Carrington and his team just a couple of days. The hardest thing was trying to find manufacturers of face shields, but to pivot from 3D to get a face shield and to sell them all over the country and the world is pretty phenomenal. But what's remarkable, if you look at the tax collections from the Department of Revenue last year over year, online sales, it was averaging somewhere, 60, 70 million bucks. And all of a sudden last year it was 300 million. So people were spending the exact same amount of money. They just chose a different way of spending that money, i.e. online. And so what we've seen, a lot of folks that didn't have that dress shop on, children's dress shop, instead of selling to people downtown Columbia, they're selling in Arizona and Washington State and all over. So pretty amazing how you get in a rut. Now I'll tell you, he's a small business, but our friend Scott Middleton's business, he's got a bunch of them, but he had one area of his business that was all referral based through physicians' offices. He had a home health business. And when the doctor's offices closed, he was like, where's our referral business? How are we going to do this? And so he went out and had to think differently how he got direct. So he started a direct advertising campaign to go, instead of going through a doctor's office to refer, he went straight to the patients. So tripled his business. So it's amazing how we get into a mindset of we think one-dimensionally sometimes, because that's the way we've always done it. But getting outside of that comfort zone and really figuring it's trial and error in a lot of ways. But if you're willing to make the risk, it sometimes pays off.
Definitely.
Hey, Jared, Hollow Creek also did something really cool, and it was more on the creative side and to relieve stress, was they started mixing cocktails online. And then when it was safe after COVID, they would provide a sample, because they're not, a bar or anything, but they would provide a sample, and people came to the store and actually, enjoyed one sample, and then were able to talk about these new creations that they've come up with. And I'm sure that, they didn't mean for it to go that way, but it ended up going that way. And I think there are other companies that just, started doing videos online, and these things got viral, and it just attracted more customers and clients to their brand.
Well, if anybody's willing to donate, I'm willing to drink online if that helps.
I'm right there with you, Carl. I'll join you.
You mean y'all are drinking already?
Just coffee.
So we've seen some statistics that say small businesses in South Carolina are rebounding faster than other communities. Tim, I'm coming to you first. Why do you think, I guess in your opinion, why would small businesses here rebound faster than somewhere else?
I'm so glad I got that question first. I really am, because it's all about the community. We have got such a great community here that supports small businesses. I get to see that now better than I ever have before. And we've got businesses that support our community. So coming out of COVID, there's nothing better than for us to just, revitalize. I mean, we've been set up for success. Angelle and Carl spoke to it already about the fact of as small as a distillery, what can I do to help during this time? And people are just so ready to get out, ready to be able to patronize and be able to go to the restaurants. They're not even thinking twice about getting back to where they once were. And I'm excited that we've always had such a great business community and community business partnership in the Midlands area. Carl and Angelle and myself, I'm new to this business, guys, but it's so much fun. But they recognized early on, and they made me understand too, that the geographical lines are not about business whatsoever. Greater Cayce-West Columbia supports the businesses of Columbia. Columbia supports the businesses of Lexington. And if our chambers are doing that, everybody wins. And that's what we're seeing right now. Everybody's winning. And our community's got that same perspective. The other thing, and I'm going to steal Carl's quote from the other night when we had a little event. He said, let's make sure that we change our habits, i.e. the habits that we might have gotten into about clicking something online and buying something from 1,000 miles away. Hey, it's time to change those habits. Let's go back to the local stores. And while we're seeing the majority of the people changing those habits, statistics still show that there's some people that are continuing to do so. I have to remind myself and my wife from time to time, put that computer down, let's go to the store. And we're doing that, and our community is doing the same thing. So thanks for giving me that question first, Jared. Appreciate it.
Of course. Angelle?
Yeah, what I've heard from our businesses is that there's so much community pride. It kind of talks a little bit about what Tim said, but there's such pride. I think the people here in Lexington saw that their friends and their families and were hurting during the pandemic, and they realized, hey, we've got to step in, we've got to do something. So tonight I'm gonna go out to eat and I'm gonna buy from a local restaurant, or I'm gonna go shop because it's gonna make a difference, or I'm gonna get that person or that worker back to work. So I think people, it's just really the sense of pride. People love their communities, and they understand now the value of local and what that means. And I think everybody saw it very clearly during the pandemic when certain businesses were just forced to shut down, that none of us wanted, to not get a haircut or to go to the spa, but those sorts of businesses were really impacted.
Definitely. Carl?
I think a couple things that they mentioned, right, spot on. I mean, I think part of it, and I've talked about this a lot, is South Carolina, there's 2 degrees of separation from everybody, right? I mean, it forget Kevin Bacon or whatever. Everybody knows everybody in South Carolina. And I think that helps. And we know how important small business is. So I think that's part of it. And this is not to be political, and I don't really want to get on this discussion, but I think we had some smart decisions from our state officials by not shutting everything down. And I know it was, again, when you don't shut all the way down, you don't have to reopen and you lose momentum. So it slowed a bunch, but we didn't have an outright stop. So I thought that was pretty good. And it forced people to pivot and change their habits and where they went. They couldn't eat inside or, whatever. But I think that had a little bit to do with it as well. So for the most part, we have been fortunate in South Carolina. You hear about parts of the Northeast that are still shut down or opening back up right now. And we're so far ahead of the game, which is good.
Yeah, Carl, that's such a good point. It's not about how or how much you shut down, it's how it affects it to be able to open back up. And Carl's right on target with that. I think our leaders had a lot of foresight in what and how they did, and it's helping us, Jared, in this point of being able to get back to where we need to be.
Definitely. The strong community that we have is, and I've heard Carl say it a million times, is a rising tide raises all ships. So if we can work together and build our own communities, it's only going to help us. If Cayce-West Columbia is doing well and Lexington is doing well and Columbia is doing well, then we're all doing well. Our community is doing well. So why not work together? Why not combine forces and try and add as much value to small business and business in general here in the greater Columbia region? So we got time for a couple more questions, then we're going to open it up for a Q&A. So I'm going to kick this one right back to you, Carl. What are some things that the Chamber has planned, and Susan or Henry, you feel free to add to this? What are some things that the Chamber has planned coming up? I know there was just a golf tournament, just had a partner engagement. What are some things that Columbia Chamber has planned moving forward to try and help businesses get back on their feet?
Yeah, well, thanks. We're trying, we're slow to get back. I know Angelle and Tim have been back before we have, but we've gotten some in face-to-face stuff. We're trying to do some committees face-to-face or hybrid. That's important. I mean, the networking events are important. And you got, what's been very, very clear is, well, let's call it what it is. I mean, government shut down in 3 days, everything, the federal government shut everything down. And it's taken about 15 months for lawyers to allow us to get back open again, right? And so the smaller businesses truly want the interaction. They want the networking activities. They want to be out and about. It's the big boys, the national corporations that have been slow to come out of this thing. So we're in the middle. We're coming out, and so we've got a bunch of events planned, not only from the networking side, but small business groups. Susan, chime in, because I don't have my calendar right in front of me to tell me what all is coming up, but I know we have a full docket.
Sorry about that. We are not actually going to be bringing back our military outreach group meeting for a while. We're waiting on the state fairgrounds to allow us to come back in a meeting role. But we are very actively through all of our media networks and connections supporting the Support Small, Save Local, encouraging people to get out and buy locally. And that's one of the biggest things we have going on right now. Rose has done a great job working with our partners on that to try and encourage folks to get out, shop local, be about local, and like Carl said, to change their habits and put down the internet connections and go out and face-to-face networking with our businesses and with our restaurants too. And if you've been on Main Street lately or Cayce-West Columbia, anywhere, I hadn't been in Lexington, Angelle, but you can just see the activity levels picking up. my sister reports in Lexington that people are out everywhere. So, the more that we can encourage safely getting out and supporting our businesses, the better off we're going to be. And then from a chamber standpoint, we will have some more partner engagements next month coming up so that people will be out and about and be together. So hopefully we'll get some great turnouts there. And then with our group, with the small business, we'll start asking people, are you ready to come out? And what we've been doing is we'll take a survey and say, okay, are you feeling comfortable with coming out? And how do you feel as far as, the provisions? Even at our last 2 events, we had dots where people could put, they feel comfortable being there. Don't get too close to me or wear your mask around me. But just trying to be really receptive and perceptive of what people's needs are and what they feel comfortable with, so we can slowly but gradually get back into meeting in person.
Well, I know the golf tournament was a couple of weeks ago. That was a lot of fun. Obviously, the partner engagement, that was a lot of fun. The combined event that Cayce-West Columbia and Columbia Chamber had just across the bridge last week was awesome. Hoping for a lot more of that. I've sat in on a couple meetings with you guys, Tim. I know you guys have a lot of stuff in the works. Anything that you guys have coming up that you want to make the group aware of, or anything you have planned for small business to try and help get them back on their feet?
Well, I guess it's philosophical more about what we're doing and where we're going coming out of this. But yes, we do have our golf tournament that will be Thursday. And we will also have our annual banquet coming up in July. And then we'll be partnering with the other chambers for some other events as we move forward. But philosophically, what we have done and what we will continue to do right now is encourage not only the shop local, but what we're coining up as the love local. When you love something, you're going to take care of it and you're going to be there and you're going to be able to coddle it. And so we're going to continue with our love local. But I do want to camp out on just a second, Jared, with something that you helped us a great deal with. And our board of directors has recognized a committee concept is extremely important in trying to get right down to the people who know what needs to get done. And one of those committees has been our Small Business Advisory Council that was generated and built during the midst of COVID. And coming out of that, Carl, Blackstone, and myself and Jared recognized that we don't need to be in silos about this. The businesses are not in silos. Businesses, as I said earlier, go from Columbia to Lexington, back to greater Cayce-West Columbia. So Carl's been kind enough to be able to assign Jared to our greater Cayce-West Columbia Small Business Advisory Council, because we want to make sure that we pollinate, if you will, the needs of what's going on throughout all our businesses. So we're getting out of the philosophy, and when I say Carl, but Angelle is right in the midst of all this too. We're getting away from the exclusion to the inclusion mentality of what we can do for our businesses in the Midlands area. And that's where we're going to move to, and that's what we're going to do to continue supporting our businesses. So Jared, thank you for your willingness to serve on that.
Just glad to see everybody trying to pull on the same side of the rope. I think that's going to benefit all of us. So Angelle, I know Lexington Chamber Golf Tournament was yesterday. Feeling it a little bit today. I know you guys have you still have your breakfast going. There's a lot of good things in the works over in Lexington. Anything that you want to make the group aware of?
Sure. I'm happy to report that we continue to have our breakfast meetings. Those are the second Tuesday of every month. And we are gearing up for Lexpo, which is our annual trade show. It's going to be June the 24th at River Bluff High School from 11 to 2. That's a big deal. We also do an executive hustle, sort of a speed networking program. That's been beneficial. And then we just continue to, recognize some small business companies of each month, as well as in our member news, we're pushing out information about accolades and things that are going on in small businesses. So, trying to just all around be supportive. And we're hearing from our members that they are desperate for the interaction and they want to get back to the way it was. It won't ever be the same. We've made some adjustments, but we want to be responsive and continue to offer those programmings and educational seminars.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Lexpo. I think I've been a part of it every year that we've had it the past 3 or 4 years. It's a great event, great turnout. There's going to be a lot of people, a lot of vendors. So come out, network. It's an opportunity to build some more relationships. But that's it for our questions. I want to give the audience or attendees an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have. Feel free to unmute yourself or utilize the chat to ask your question. But I want to open up the floor.
Hey, Jared.
Yes,
This
ma'am.
is Jeannie Reynolds. I have a question for the panelists. Do you think that chambers have any role in encouraging vaccination so that people can feel safer going back out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that we've got to figure out a way, and which is what the CDC did last week, was lifting the mask ordinances for those that had vaccination, because vaccinations had declined rapidly throughout many states. I mean, they just stalled out. And so, yeah, I think we probably can encourage if that's what they want. The problem we're going to have is some companies want to require employees to get it. And I think that's going to end up in the courts. So there's probably a little legalese we got to dance around to make sure that we're, and I was on a call last week with some chamber folks asking the same question. And I think we all know, having the herd, enough folks that get it, that have the herd protection mentality, whatever you want to call it, is important, and we're not there yet. So I don't have a problem doing it personally. I'm vaccinated and glad to be done with it. But I'm open.
I think we do have a role to just promote and to facilitate and to try to push out the messages from our healthcare providers and the hospitals, and, you know, trying to get to those populations in the neighborhoods that are not being, you know, addressed right now. And I think we're making some progress, but certainly we have still a long way to go. So I do think we have a role to play, you know, and influence those people that we do connect with, and just sort of continue to encourage it so that we can stay safe. And so, you know, as I heard our school superintendent in Lexington 1, he said, the goal is not to, you know, just get the kids back in school, it's to keep them in school. So it's the same thing. We want to keep the business community going, and we don't want to have the stop and the start. So I feel like we do have a role.
Yeah, Jeannie, I would go along with both my peers, and specifically to what Angelle was saying. We've got a role. Is how far do we go with that role? Certainly, our role is to support our businesses and what their needs are, but not to go as far as managing those businesses or dictating certain things for those businesses or getting involved in rules and regulations of a specific business. This pandemic, though, as I keep reminding myself, it happens once in a century. So we're going to have to be leaders to be able to get through this. And therefore, you should be able to rely upon your greater Chamber of Commerce to help you with that leadership. How far we get involved, that's probably the bigger question right now. Our board has recognized over the past year that we need to mirror those that we serve, and not just be all large businesses or all small businesses. And right now, we have a good makeup, and we are listening to those and getting their advice on what we need to do and how we should respond at this point.
I'm just glad that I wasn't asked that question. That's a tough question.
That was a tough. That was good.
But I appreciate the question, though, Jeannie. Does anybody else have any other questions? Nobody has any other? Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
I just want to point out, I see Laura Snellgrove on here. Laura Snellgrove, you know, she's with Spectrum, and we were talking about people pivoting. And I got a phone call from them when all this was happening about, hey, how can we better serve you? Being we realized that, you know, office and working in the office would be different. And so, you know, when we're talking about pivoting, it's about how they helped us pivot too. So a shout out to Laura and her team for what they did.
There's a lot of valuable partners and relationships at each of the chambers. A lot of people that were there during the tough times, a lot of people that are still there now to help assist your business in growth or pivot or whatever it might be. So definitely utilize your chamber members, chamber partnership. I know that utilize your partner portal at Columbia Chamber. it's not called the Partner Portal at Lexington, but utilize your member directory at both the Cayce-West Columbia and Lexington Chamber, and get in touch with your partners, build those relationships, because those are the people that are going to be there for you whenever something happens. You know, your community partners, you don't want to have to call an 800 number for help. You want to be able to call or text someone that you've met at a chamber event or someone that you've built a business relationship. So definitely leverage those partners, those members. If there's one thing I could ask everybody to take away from today, it would be just spread the word that you have your chamber CEOs putting their heads together to collaborate and try and figure out how to add the most value to small business. I feel like that's just a really powerful statement, just having them here in the room together. Obviously, this isn't the only time they talk. They have great relationships, but we collectively are trying to figure out how we can add the most value to small businesses. So I just want to say thanks to Carl, Tim, and Angelle for being here today, and all of you for attending. We're working hard to try and figure out what we can do to make our community the best, from a personal relationship standpoint and a business standpoint. So really appreciate all of you guys. And if nobody has any other questions, that's it for me. Mark your calendars for our June breakout. You can find all of the events and things that are going on at the various chambers on their Facebook page or their website, so check those out. And we hope to see you guys next time. That's it for me. If anybody else has anything, I'm going to close my mouth.
One thing I would say is thank you to our speakers and panelists for the leadership that y'all provide in the community, and also to everybody on this call for supporting our small business. We'll be sending out a link to the recording this afternoon, and I would encourage you to please share that with all of your chamber members and other partners, because the discussion was very educational for me, and also it's exciting to hear the positive comments about what we are doing in our communities and working together. So I encourage you to share that, and then join us again on June 15th. And then, like Jared said, check all the calendar events. There's a lot going on, a lot of fun things to get out and support local. So we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Susan. Thank y'all. Y'all have a great day, great week. Appreciate all of you.
Drive carefully, Tom Ledbetter.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.